Today we will be looking at the circulatory system. You would have already been introduced to the circulatory system in our last session. I sent some videos for you to take a look at and you had to make some notes in a table. So today I am going to explain the circulatory system. Alright, a beating heart is such a clear sign of life that in the past, the heart and the blood were thought to be responsible for emotions as well as health. An aggressive person was described as hot-blooded, and a cool, distant person was described as cold-blooded. I am sure you heard those things already. Right, you would have heard maybe your parents or grandparents saying he's a real hot-blooded person, right? A kind of person who is warm-hearted, a kind person would have been known as warm-hearted, and a cruel person would have been known as cold-hearted. I am sure each and every one of you would have heard those sayings at one point in time or another. It was also taught that we fell in love through our hearts. Now we know that these personalities and feelings have more to do with the brain rather than the heart, but we still use these descriptions up until today. The true purpose of the heart is to pump blood to every part of your body. Your blood vessels and the blood that flows through them make up your circulatory system. In this topic, you will learn how the circulation works to carry nutrients to cells and remove waste materials from all parts of the body. Now, what are some of the things we can look at to know if our heart is beating? Right? We can check for a pulse. Right? So if your heart is beating, you will feel that pulse. So if you take your thumb finger and you place it close to your wrist, what you will feel is a little beat, a little pulse, right? You'll feel the blood throbbing through that vein. So you're going to look at your left hand. I want you all to try it now. And you're going to see, most of the time you're able to see that little bulge of vein. There's an artery or a vein right there by your wrist. Rest your thumb very gently on it. Calm your breathing. Be in silence, and if you feel, you will feel that little pulse there. If you cannot feel it on yourself, you can check a sibling or your parent, and you can use your thumb or you can use two fingers. So you can use your index and middle finger of your right hand and rest it on their wrist, and you will be able to feel their pulse. So let us look at the circulatory system now. So it's a series of tubes and vessels that carry blood to all parts of the body. The major components of the circulatory system are the heart and different types of blood vessels. So we are going to learn a little bit of the different blood vessels. In the blood, there are essential substances that are needed to keep the cells alive and functioning. The heart has the job of pumping blood through the circulatory system. Very important for you to take note of the job of the heart, right? So the heart's job is to pump blood through the system. That is all the heart does, right? It pumps blood out of the heart, brings blood back into the heart. It moves the blood throughout the body. It is made of a special kind of muscle that contracts and relaxes constantly without any rest. It is also an involuntary action. You cannot tell your heart to start beating. You cannot tell your heart to stop beating. It happens automatically. You can be awake, you can be asleep, you can be running, you can be jumping, you can be walking, you can be playing. Your heart will keep beating, right? What this circulatory system does, right, is that it carries oxygen as well as nutrients. Now we just completed the digestive system, and we know that in the digestive system our body would have been absorbing nutrients, right? At different stages throughout the digestive process, our body would have been absorbing all of those nutrients. So the circulatory system now transports these nutrients as well as oxygen throughout the body. It also carries waste materials, so it can be excreted from the body. So we are going to start to look at the name. So we are going to be looking at the circulatory system and how it carries these materials throughout the body. We will be naming the parts of the circulatory system. We will be learning what is the function or the job of each part of the circulatory system. Alright, on average, an adult heart is about the size of a mango. So if you want to picture what the heart looks like, this is the heart in the middle here, and it looks about the size of a mango, to get a little indication for you to think about how big your heart is in your chest. The heart is comprised of two separate pumps which are side by side, and we'll go into more detail in a little bit. So let's look at it. So that's our heart in there. It's in our chest. Your heart starts beating before you are born and carries on without stopping until the day you die. So blood vessels. The circulatory system has different sorts of blood vessels. The vessels that carry blood away from the heart are called arteries. Very important. So arteries carry blood away from the heart. So you make sure and you take note of that. And the vessels that carry blood back towards the heart are called veins. So arteries carry blood away from the heart and veins carry blood back towards the heart. Blood is a complex mixture of different chemicals and cells. If a sample of blood is spun in a centrifuge, I want you all to look up what is a centrifuge. For a short period of time, it separates out into a straw-colored liquid called plasma. I am sure you heard the word plasma. Now, this is not the same plasma that is in your televisions. Right? But it's a straw-colored liquid, so a kind of off-white pale color, and a dark red mass of blood cells. Right? Blood cells are red because of a pigment known as hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is a pigment in blood that causes blood to get its red color. But blood is not just blood alone, right? It's not just blood cells alone. It's a mixture of the dark red blood cells as well as a mixture of different chemicals called plasma. Right, so it's you can also say that it contains different types of minerals as well. Right, let's look at pulse rate. When the heart pushes blood along the arteries, it creates a pulse that you can feel at certain points on the body. Just like what I was telling you, you can check your wrist and you can feel the pulse rate. If you go by the doctor, they will usually put on their stethoscope and they will put it by your chest and they will be able to feel your pulse rate or your heart rate. Doctors sometimes check a patient's pulse rate as a way of finding out if their heart is functioning normally. Circulatory problems. If anything goes wrong with the heart or the other parts of the circulatory system, it can be extremely dangerous because our heart carries oxygen throughout our body. Without oxygen, we are not able to survive, right? So, doctors take chest pains very seriously as it could indicate a heart problem. Right? You all can read up on this, which tells you a little bit about heart transplants and stuff like that, right? So let's go into all the nice stuff now. So the structure of the circulatory system. So this is what the entire circulatory system looks like. It is a network of blood vessels, arteries and veins. Those are the blood vessels we'll be looking at. And the heart is the central part of that. So in the diagram, your heart is shown in the center as red. All of the arteries are the red vessels and all of your veins are the blue vessels. So it's very important to take note of it. And we already know that the purpose of the heart is to pump the blood around the system. The human circulatory system is commonly described as a double circulatory system, right? Why it is called that? Because it has two circuits or two parts to it. In one circuit, the blood will pass between the heart and the lungs. While in the lungs, the blood will absorb oxygen, because when we breathe in, oxygen enters through our mouth and nose and it goes into our lungs. Right? So when you breathe in, oxygen coming through your nose, it's going into your lungs. But we need that oxygen to be transported throughout our body. So the heart must be connected to the lungs at some point in time. While in the lungs, blood will absorb oxygen and it will release any carbon dioxide and water vapor. Because remember, when our body uses the oxygen, it converts into carbon dioxide and water. When we do respiration, it will become a little bit more clear. Right? In the second part of the system now, right, we look at a diagram in a bit. So in the second part of the system, blood will pass between the heart and the rest of the body. So the two parts are, we have blood going from our heart to our lungs, where the blood now is going to get rid of any deoxygenated blood, right? So any carbon dioxide and water vapor will be disposed of in the lungs, and the lungs will expel it as exhaled air, right? Now blood becomes oxygenated in the lungs, so when we breathe in, any oxygen that is present in the air, the blood is going to absorb some of that oxygen and transport it back to the heart. Now when that oxygenated blood gets back to the heart, the heart now is going to pump that blood around the entire body. Once it goes around the entire body uses up the oxygen, deoxygenated blood now will be sent back to the heart, and the heart now will pump that back to the lungs to be removed by the body. So that is that's a basic outlook of what the circulatory system is. Okay, so we already discussed that in the diagram you will be seeing arteries in red and veins in blue. Right? Now, it does not mean that your blood is going to change color as it passes through the system. Right? What happens is oxygenated blood will be bright red in color, whereas deoxygenated blood is going to be a deep dark red. That will be the difference in it. So we also talked about the double system. The double system is advantageous so that the blood to the rest of the body can be pumped by the heart at a much higher pressure than would otherwise be the case. So it ensures that the oxygenated blood reaches all parts of the body. You are going to take note of these key terms on the side here. So what is the circulatory system? It's the system that carries blood around our body. What is the heart? It's a muscular 4-part sac. Now when we go into the heart in a little bit more detail, you will see the 4 sections, also known as ventricles and atriums. So you will see those parts in the cross section of the heart. It's at the center of the circulatory system and it pumps blood around the body. Very important, right? And the double circulatory system. So what I would like you all to do is that you are going to copy and complete these 3 sentences, and we will look at that in our next class. You can also start reading up on the heart, right? So in our next session, which is going to be tomorrow afternoon, that is going to be a live session, and we will be looking at the heart in detail. You have to know how to draw and label the cross-section of the heart, so you need to pay attention to this diagram here. So for today, just the main parts of the circulatory system, and tomorrow we will be looking at the heart. So I'm going to look at all of this in tomorrow's class.